Hello everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. Welcome to the broadcast. So, I think most of you know who I am. It's Earl Man, and we are bringing back something that I used to do a while ago for quite a long time. It started off as a workshop. It's just a casual conversation around useful ideas on leadership and personal growth development, that stuff, and then it turned into a broadcast, and now we're going to try to see if we can transition that into this mobile environment. So hopefully everybody's getting this okay. And the first one will be a little bit of experiment, so I may want to ask you to try to do a couple of things as we go along. For example, well, I don't know how many people are tuned in, but I was going to say I want to see if I can actually receive a text. I'm doing this from my phone, but I believe if you send me a text, I can get that text and not have it interrupt the broadcast. So that's going to be experiment number one. I've never actually tried that. Just thought about it because I saw a text come in a little while ago, and it seemed not to interfere. So that would be a pretty interesting way that I can get some real-time feedback as we go along. So if somebody would just send me a text and say hi, and see what happens. Hopefully I don't lose everybody and have to re-engage. Got it. All right. This is cool. All right, guys. So I got a text. Thanks, Connie. Beautiful. Oh, a couple of people sending texts. So hey, guys, this is the deal. So these are casual conversations around things that I've come across throughout my study, experimentation, practical experiences, etc., that I found to be useful. And it's not designed to be a prescription of anything other than it's pretty much designed to be a conversation where I share ideas, and most of all, perspective. And I'm trying to share the perspective that I think, or at least I'm aware of, have had disproportionate impact on good things from where I sit. So just a little bit about the origins of my perspective. I think this might actually be one of the most useful things I share today, because I tell this often, and I encourage people to take a similar path. And I think if they did that, the benefits to them would at least equal the benefits I've received. But I credit most of my perspective, and actually anything that I would self-define as success, is coming from this challenge I made to myself over a decade ago now, that I now call the game. And the game was a very dedicated mission to improve my knowledge base and my personal understanding of about as many things as possible in the shortest period of time as I could manage. And essentially, the game was my quest to learn more quickly, and it all revolved around reading, and it was a pretty simple thing. So I'll start with this just so you know where it comes from, and then we get into kind of the topic of the day, which is just 7 cents, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. But basically, the game goes something like this. I'd gone through college and done all that stuff, and was out in a successful career in the military. Actually, I was an officer, and I looked around and realized it was just a lot about a lot of things that I just hadn't been exposed to, or just thought that my level of understanding was a little light on. And I went on this personal growth mission, and it started with me committing, no matter what. I mean, a very serious, solemn promise that I would start by reading one book a month. And no matter what, I mean, car blow up, house fall down, I would still have to do it, right? And I wanted to commit to that for a year. And just to show you how serious I was about that, the first couple of books I read were on reading comprehension, reading speed, that kind of thing. So these were the rules to what I called to be the game. The rules were only nonfiction books counted towards my quota. I could read fiction books, but they wouldn't count towards my one a month. And I would get the book list. The books that I would read would come from a few sources. One would be from the most extraordinary people I'd ever met. In fact, I built a habit of, when I met people that I thought were unique, different, special, interesting, I would just go up to them and ask them, hey, have you ever read a book that made a difference? And I'd just remember these books or write these books down, and those books would ultimately end up on my list. I would also get books from books. So if you read nonfiction books, quite often, if not all the time, they reference other books, other authors, etc. So I would get my book list that way as well. So the first year, a book a month, I did it. The second year, two a month. The third year, three a month, and never could really get much more than that practically. But I've averaged since then a couple of books a month. And it's been over 10 years, so it's been, I forgot the math now. I'm thinking 400 plus books. The other rule was I could never read more than 3 books on the same topic. The max number of books I could read on the same topic was 3. So, for example, if I was reading a book on business, because it hit my list, and then the next book I read on business, then the following book had to be on something else. It couldn't be on business. I could read a book on something else and then come back to business, but it couldn't be. I didn't want to get trapped into one school of thought or one subject matter. So because of that little rule, believe it or not, I bounced all over the place. I mean, books on sociology, psychology, history, ancient civilizations, math, physics, life science. You'd be amazed. It's just all over the place. And by doing that, an interesting thing started to arise that after, halfway through the first year, I believe it was, I started to see a lot of similar themes, a lot of similar ideas, regardless of the school of thought or the subject matter I was reading from. I saw similar themes in math that I saw in life science or history or ancient civilizations. You just see these things that reoccurred. And these are the things that started to stick out to me over time, and over a longer period of time, I started to just weave these into my strategies and tactics and trying to be better. So that's the origin of my perspective, and I thought I'd start the first one with that because, quite honestly, I believe if anybody did that, they would take a similar journey that I have, and believe me, my life now is dramatically different in every way than it was then. And of all the things I've done, corporate America, military, leadership, military, entrepreneurship, all of that, I still credit to this day that was probably the best foundation building. I credit all the results from that game, and I still am still doing it for the most part, right? So here we go. So today the idea today we want to talk about is, I call it the 7th sense. And so when we think about how we determine what is real in our world, right? When we think about what is real to us, what our reality is, for the sake of argument today, right? Remember, this is just ideas to think about. Most people would understand that, well, what we do is we take in information from our senses, right? Our senses. We all know that we have 5 major senses, right? We have 5 senses that everybody commonly accept, right? Hearing, sight, smell, taste, and touch, right? And we know that we use any of these 5 senses, we take in that information, we process it, and we create what is real. So when we touch things, we know that they are there. When we smell things, we know that they're there. When we see things, we know that they're there. Hear things, we know that they're there. So these are, for a large part, we create our reality by the information we take in from our senses. Okay, so that's going to be one of the premises we use to build this idea around, right? So there's also the idea that's largely accepted in many circles is this idea of a 6th sense. This idea of a 6th sense. So this idea of a 6th sense is that people call it intuition or gut feelings, the ability to kind of feel things, see things, feel things that are beyond your 5 senses, that are useful. In fact, there's a lot of study and research around what we believe to be our 6th sense or intuition or instinct or gut feelings. In fact, there's a real interesting book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. I believe that's the author. And he kind of he reframes the idea a little bit of the sixth sense, and he does it in a very practical way by equating it to our ability to just process information so very fast that it looks like we are seeing or understanding things without evidence of that, when in fact actually we do have evidence. This is just one angle at looking at the sixth sense. There are others. But for those of you that are really stuck into the world of physical reality, things that we can touch, five sense based reality, it's hard for people to build credence around the idea of maybe a sixth sense being absolutely or legitimate or possible. Then if you read, that might be an angle to help you open up your mind a little bit, because he explains intuition in such a way that even if you don't believe in like the non-physical or metaphysical type of things being possible, you can explain it in very practical reasons. So there is this idea of a sixth sense or intuition or gut feeling that we all understand, that I go with my gut, I feel, and these things have always served. And some people say that that sense has served them as much or more even in big decisions than their five senses. But today I want to talk to you about one I find to be equally as common, right? And especially in my own experience, when I meet people that have done extraordinary things, or people that continue to do extraordinary things, or actually have built the habit of seeming to beat the odds, of doing really incredible things. And these are people that have a strong sense of destiny. So it's this concept of a sense of destiny that I call the seventh sense. And I like to just throw that in there because for these people, and when I hear their stories, and when you really unwrap what empowered them or made them able to do some of the things that afforded them the opportunity to beat the odds, it all came down to this sense of destiny, this sense of purpose. And if you think about it, let me give you some examples of what I mean by sense of destiny. By sense of destiny, let's define it. By sense of destiny, all I mean is, what you currently believe your path to be in this universe. What do you think you're destined or designed to end up? What type of, either specifically or non-specifically. We all have a belief as to where we are headed and how and what our natural station is in life, what our natural station is in the universe. And I can tell you, it's very hard for us to do anything outside of that self-perception. So if we believe that our destiny is to be X, then most of what we do now will be to support that idea, to support that. And in fact, I would argue almost that it's almost impossible to break that, to do things that are not consistent with what you really believe your destiny to be. Now, this is the thing about destiny. Your sense of destiny can be either one that was given to you or one that you create yourself. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit let me give you practical examples of what I mean by this. So, if you know any artists that have made it, or if you ever watched like VH1 or how stars are made, and you go back, you look at rock stars now, and you go back 10 or 15 years, you look at an overnight success, right? Somebody that out of nowhere they're an overnight sensation. But when you actually do the story behind the story, you realize that wow, they actually started their craft maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. And then when you hear them explain what they were doing, most of them will say something to the effect of, they always knew they needed to be on stage. They always knew that they would end up on stage. They always knew that they would end up, singing music or sharing their feelings, expressing themselves emotionally through music, sometimes even as young children. And because they knew that was where they were supposed to end up and what they were supposed to be doing, they were willing to make the sacrifice at every stage of their life. I mean, they might not have did some things that their peers did. They might have gave up, some things that there's people around them thought might have been a great opportunity for what appeared to be a waste, right? That the period of their life where they were going through all these, doing these dive shows, and maybe giving up on college or giving up on some other opportunity because they were so driven to follow the music. And the reason why they could so clearly do these things, and the reason why they could have the self-discipline and to do it, and also the reason why they would have the courage to face the uncertainty of pursuing that path, was completely or largely based upon this idea of them having this clear sense of destiny. The seventh sense was driving them. I mean, the same for people in business. I mean, you talk to some entrepreneurs right today, and even entrepreneurs that are new entrepreneurs, when you really talk to them and understand, go back through their history and look at their decision making and ask them why they're doing what they're doing, many of them will tell you, will say as well, that they're doing these things because they always knew they wanted to be in business for themselves, or they always knew they had this idea, and they felt that it was their destiny. And they might not use big words like destiny, but they would say, I felt it was up to me to make this dream come true, or to make my idea reality. Same thing. What they're saying is, they felt that this sense of destiny to make these things happen, or they felt that they were destined to make these things happen. You see it really often in high-level politics, right? Or even in religion. People have the calling, right? So people have this idea. This idea I'm talking about isn't new. I didn't make it up. What I'm doing is encouraging you to focus in on it and treat it like one of the five senses. So you look at it different that way. When you try to take your sense of destiny and you turn it into something that's more like one of your five senses, then suddenly it becomes something a little bit more controllable or tangible, or it becomes an idea that you can work around. If you don't do that, if you just kind of think of it as something out there, then it seems more like something that just shows up. A lot of people, let's say, like especially in the areas of faith, when people think of a calling, they think of something that just happens. Something that just out of nowhere, they just feel it, right? Well, this is the thing. If we look at belief systems, and we talk a lot about belief systems, and what I try to encourage people to do is just to try to get an understanding of the impact that your beliefs have on every other aspect of your life. I would never be here to tell you what your belief systems need to be or what they need to consist of, but I am trying to encourage people in everything that I do to keep in mind, to keep in consideration what they believe, one, what those beliefs are doing to serve them or not serve them, two, and three, what was the source of that belief? What was the source of that belief? Where did it come from? If you believe something about the universe, about your universe specifically, especially about you, what do you believe about yourself, in relations to how you fit in this world? It would really be beneficial to at least explore where did you get that belief from, and four, what evidence do you have, especially when you realize that some of your beliefs may not be in your best interest? Where did that belief come from? So let me just give you some quick examples of what I mean by that. There are some people in this world right now that believe that they can't be good in business because they don't have the right, they don't have enough money. That's a very common belief, right? So I would just ask those people to explore that belief and try to find out those four things, right? Where did that belief come from? And then the most important one is that belief actually true? So here's the exercise. Because what you're going to find when you do this is that many people don't know or hadn't thought about where a lot of the beliefs that are driving them are coming from. They hadn't thought about it. And once they start to think about it, once they go back and really start to focus in on it, they're going to realize that they don't know where that came from. And quite in many cases, they aren't based in anything that they can prove to be real. They're just an idea they have in their head. And if that turns out to be true, then suddenly you are empowered with the ability, if you choose, to remove that belief or replace that belief with a more useful or more empowering belief, right? So there are many people right now that believe a lot of things about themselves that if those beliefs were true, there would be serious roadblocks that stand between them now and them becoming who they want to become, or them going where they want to go. But in my opinion, I think if anybody did any investigation, they would find that many of those beliefs, they don't even know how they got in their head, and two, they don't even know that they're true. I can tell you right now that there are many people in parts of the world right now in this country. Let's just say, so I'll give you a couple of quick examples. Well, let me give you one other thing, and this is one of those things that so remember when I told you during the game, I found these ideas or these themes that seem to repeat themselves over and over and over and over and over. Well, one of the things I found, that repeated itself, a concept that continued to surface from multiple schools of thought, was this idea that we are driven to prove in our lives things we hold to be true in the beginning. So however we believe this world works, whatever we believe to be true, a large part of what we do with most of our decision making and most of our activity is to prove that what we know to be true. So let me give it to you in a different way. One of the most powerful drives we have as humans, as individuals, is to be right. Not right necessarily like right in an argument, just right about the way the world works. And I can argue that I could logically build a lot of explanations as to why this should be true. So if you think about it, if you go back far enough in time in human history, you can imagine, or at least I'm going to invite you to imagine, that whether or not you are right about which plants you could eat or not eat might have life and death consequences when you think about it, right? Whether or not you are right about which animals were dangerous and which animals were not could have life and death consequences. If you go back far enough in time, you can realize that some very basic decisions were absolutely critical that you were right about them. And let me give you another less serious example. But most of the things we take for granted, we do so because we are so certain that we are right. When you pull out your chair at your kitchen table and sit in it, you don't contemplate whether or not the chair is going to hold you, whether or not it's going to stand when you sit on it. You know that you're right. You know that the chair is going to. You take for granted that the chair, that your understanding that the chair is going to support you is right, and you just do it habitually. When you walk outside, you're right about gravity holding you to the ground. Therefore, you don't worry about floating off into space. I'm just giving you a lot of crazy examples just to kind of help illustrate this simple point. But the point is, being right about this world is deeply connected, possibly, right, to our survival instincts when you think about it, right? So let me extrapolate on that just a little bit more. The prediction, right? We based a lot of our life on prediction, but prediction is basically another example of us needing to be right, even about things that haven't happened yet, right? And I don't mean predicting things like earthquakes and predicting the lottery number. I just mean simple predictions like being able to predict when you meet somebody that you think is you decide is going to be a potential friend or more in your life. What you're doing is predicting that person is going to bring you some value, right? Some happiness, a good feeling. That's a prediction. Danger, fear is based on prediction, right? When you're in a seedy part of town and you look at a dark alley that might be a shortcut and you don't take it, it's because you predict that something bad might happen in there. So a lot of our life is built around our ability to predict, right? In fact, a ton of it drives us forward, right? We're about to elect somebody in the office based on our own individual predictions as to who might be best for the country. We change jobs when we predict the job we're going to is better than the one we have. We start things based on our prediction that what we start will be worth the starting. So this idea of being able to predict, and this is you can see how they might even be the exact same idea of us needing to be right, which all go back to this simple idea that we're talking about today of this seventh sense, or your sense of destiny. And it's just my way of saying, what you perceive your sense of destiny to be determines what you know to be right. And in that example I gave of the artists that are, sleeping in the car, doing these dive bars, they're doing it because they know they're doing the right thing, right? They know they're doing the right thing because they're driven by this incredible sense of destiny. So hopefully I give you a lot to think about. This is what I want you to do to help crystallize this idea and try to turn it into something useful. The whole point of these workshops is to take ideas or strategies or concepts, see if we can turn them into practical tools that we can use to make our little day-to-day experience a little bit better. So what we can do is, this is what I want you to do. I want you to just look at I want you to look at your life and think, and you can take 5 minutes, or you can take an hour, or you can take multiple hours. It just depends on how deep you want to explore this or how much you want to try to do. Look at your life, and I want you to list out as many of the things you believe about your own life to be true, right? And how the world works, what you're able to do, what you're not able to do. I want you to just write down a list of the things that you really hold to be true about yourself. And specifically, I want you to look at the ones that you think might not be to your advantage. So let me give you a real example. So let's just say, if you believe yourself to be not attractive, I just make it something fairly common. And believe it or not, that's fairly common, right? Most people have they struggle with some type of esteem issues related to looks, regardless of how you look. I mean, this is from supermodels all the way down to regular people. To non-supermodels, is because it's such a subjective thing. We're subjected to so many imageries nonstop of people that we've collectively say are on the higher end of that spectrum, and we're forced to constantly compare ourselves to that image. And even the people that represent the higher end have a hard time with that. So most people struggle with something in that area. So if your belief is that, if one of these beliefs, these limiting beliefs one of these beliefs that you don't think is serving you, is that if you were just more attractive, you could have a better life in a lot of different ways. I want you to ask yourself, where did that belief come from? And I just mentioned one of the places it probably came from. And when you really dig into that, you're going to realize that the logic behind that breaks down really fast, right? The logic behind that breaks down really fast, because obviously the whole point of it, of if we take attractiveness and beauty and that thing, the people that make it onto the runway, right, or the big screen or the print advertising, were selected because they were not common. They were uncommon. They were everything other than plentiful, which means in many cases it would not be logical to associate that quality with being something mandatory to get what you say you want, because I guarantee you, if you do research on whoever it is you say you want to become, or whatever it is you say you want to do, you're going to find that the numbers that have done it are really, really high. And many people that have done the things you want to do, or accomplished the things you want to accomplish, probably don't have some of the things that you think you need to do that. That little understanding, or that perspective in itself, will dramatically change your personal levels of power. Once you realize that, hey, I'm not making it in business because I'm short, and then suddenly you do some research and you realize that wow, there are tons of people that have killed it in business and they're all short, then suddenly that's no longer a barrier. That's no longer a barrier between you and what you say you want. And it all leads back to this little idea I want you to consider over the weekend or today, or at least for the next 5 minutes. What is your sense of destiny? What is your sense of destiny? And the wrong answer is you don't have one, because that's no such thing. You have one. In fact, your sense of destiny has put you in the exact position you're in right now. If you go back in the past, whatever your sense of destiny was in the past has reinforced and driven you and pushed you to make the decisions and take the activity that has resulted in you ending up right where you are right now. And if we think about the future, whatever you become tomorrow not meaning in 24 hours, tomorrow could be in 24 days or 24 years. But where you headed from, that your destination is controlled by your perception of your destiny. They're the same thing. They're the same thing. So I hope this exercise gives you something to think about. I can tell you that once I started to unpeel that onion about the things that I believed, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago, I'm constantly adjusting these things. And when I come across and I'm constantly shifting and adjusting my personal sense of destiny. And when you look at the things that I've been able to accomplish in the different areas of my life, they are 100% consistent, at least in my eyes, because I consciously look at it and for it. But what I do and what I have done is 100% consistent with what I perceive my sense of destiny to be, as is everybody's. So the saddest thing is that we all have this exact same power. We all have this exact same ability. We all have all the rules are the same for everybody. The difference, though, is some people are just live in a world where they're not aware of these things. So they're driven to bear out and prove out their sense of destiny, just like you are, just like I am. The slight difference is they don't think about theirs. They don't even perceive that theirs is there. They just drive forward. Whereas other people understand the relationship between their sense of destiny. They understand the relationship between their beliefs and their sense of destiny, and they understand that they have some ability to adjust and modify these beliefs in a way that's more in their interests, and which has the resulting effect on their sense of destiny being more in line with their interests, which has a huge effect on everything they perceive to be real right now, right? If you can just use your creative imagination to treat your sense of destiny the same way conceptually that you treat your five senses. If you treat it that way with your imagination, you're going to realize how potent, how powerful this idea is in the way you craft and shape your life being the moment right now. And just like you look around the room you're in, wherever you are, and you're taking in information from your five senses, and because of that you can see what's present, and from what you see and what's present, you can instantly know what's possible. I'm looking across the room at a door. I know it's possible to walk across and open that door. But I do it because of the information coming in from my five senses. But the same thing can possibly hold true, right, with this idea of the seventh sense. When you know what you are destined to do, when you feel what you are destined to be or become, then in the same way, you're going to see doors in your environment appear, or that you're going to see the doors in your environment. Then you're going to know that it's possible to move through your environment and open and walk through that door. So that's the idea for this week, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you got the gist of this idea. Just as for a note, we do this broadcast through our mobile network, so if you're watching this on a mobile phone or on your computer, just you just want to make sure you're in a place with good internet connection. If you're in a place that your wireless is slow, your internet connection is slow, or you're on a slow phone network like 3G, or you're gonna experience some buffering. But hopefully you can kind of use that buffering time to maybe take some notes, to contemplate your thoughts. Really, my goal here today is not so much just to put my thoughts in your head, is to have my thoughts be a domino that knocks a thought over in your head, and then the dominoes in your own head, based on your own experiences, your own beliefs, your own values, you can generate and create your very own ideas. And those are the ideas that are going to mean the most to you. But I'm gonna constantly try to find a way to, on a weekly basis, share some of the ideas and concepts that I 100% believe and know in my world has given me power. Has given me power, and I wish nothing less than the same to you. So thanks for tuning into the workshop. Make sure if you got value from this at all, and you think there are people out there that might gain something from it, then don't keep it to yourself. Invite them to take a look, and invite them to take and do the same exercises. You guys have a great weekend. Take care.